Hi there guys, it's been a while since I've had a chance to tune in on YouTube, say hi and give you some of my ramblings. If this is your first time ever tuning in, my name's Will Lord and what I do is I teach Stone Age skills. So in this video I've got a chunk of flint that I picked up in Denmark, far north, and because it's so square, what I've got is I've got two choices. What I could do is I could turn this into a square section axe, and the square's already in it, so that would make sense. Or I could go for alternate flaking and take the square section away. So I think what we'll do is we'll just get into this piece of stone and see what's available there anyway. There may be some odd noises rattling around because I've got my new little puppy, and just to keep control of him, I've got him on a little tethered lead over there, chewing on a deer's leg. As you can see, he's not very big, but he's a little bit on the savage side. And then his name is Chip. Chip off the old block, or Chip of Flint. So let's get the camera into position so you guys can see what's going on. First things first, we'll stick a leg pad on, and for a little added protection. And I'll get this piece of flint on my lap. The few bits of this material I have knapped has shown me that stability of the stone is a bit of an issue, but we're only going to know more once we start hitting it. So I'm going to start down this end here where I've got a bit of a different angle to look at instead of the big square sides. I should be able to cast in from that. The issue is going to be getting underneath the chalk as well, because that kind of does have an effect on how the flakes come off. I had a suspicion with this stone there's going to be some chalky substances within it. And there's a few cracks running around. I can see a crack already right here. And sometimes cracks like that, they work against the whole idea of what you're trying to make. But it doesn't matter. We'll just go in, we'll find out what it's got to say for itself. So we can see now that there's a crack laying right here, and that's travelling into the rock, which might take this whole side away from me. Yeah, nothing's running too far anywhere at the moment. We'll just keep moving. And now we've discovered that there's chalk running in through the centre here, which once again is disruptive to making any tools from it. If there's nothing to be said in this rock, then we'll just we'll get another rock out from a different place in Denmark. The dog seems to think that the chips of flint belong to him. I was going to call him or my wife was going to call him Sparky. That would have probably meant that he would have liked fire instead of flint. But he does quite often lay underneath the fire. Right, so we're moving forward. Obviously this crack here is having a persuasion on what I can say and what I can do with this piece of flint. But basically what is happening is that's being the priority to deal with that. Now the funny thing about this material is that when I started exploring this material, what I found was it was a little bit crumbly, you know. This was some of the other pieces that I've napped. That can go against what I'm trying to do. But it has got a sort of texture in it that I don't mind at all. So we'll just keep going. I think we're going to get underneath that crack, actually. So it would have made sense to go with the square section on this and make a square section Danish style axe. But if I'm really honest with you, the way we've moved into this section has been something called alternate flaking, which technically means you take a flake off and then you turn the flint over and hit into the flake skull. I'm going to find out what's going on here. I'm just going to keep napping in towards that crack. And this is a red deer antler, soft hammer as we'd describe it. And it does appear now that we're getting underneath the crack, so that's a good thing. I quite often get asked by people, do you know what you're going to make before you start? Generally the answer to that is yeah, but sometimes you just have to work with what's available more. So as I'm moving around on the stone, one of the things I haven't really done yet is what I'm doing now, which is setting up a platform, just so the edge is stronger and it allows you to cast from it. Right, I do believe that's me underneath that crack. So all that crack has gone now. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to leave that area alone, and what we're going to do is we're going to migrate down through this square section and turn that into a bifaced element. Right, Chip, go and lay down over there. As you can see, my training's going really well. So as I move across now, what I'm going to be doing is taking some of this section out. Like that, you see. And then we're going to turn it over and begin to cast back, like so. I'm going to leave that just there for a sec and then come in from this back end, see what's going on. There we go. The problem with hitting directly onto a square face is it sends the flakes too deep into the stone. And if you do that, basically what you're doing is you're causing trouble and your robbing material, which would become the tool eventually anyway. And that's, in some respects, that's game over. Not in every respect, because it can just become a smaller tool, but that's classically end shock. So I won't try and recover that right now. Quite simply, what we'll do is we'll get another rock and we'll go again. So this one came from an entirely different part of Denmark. This came from Zealand, a place called Stevens Klint. We'll just go in there, see what's going on. So that didn't look attached. It's going to be an entirely different substance, and I'm quite sure of that. Feels different even to the touch. And it's not the purest flint in the world, but you find that in a lot of flint. It doesn't matter where you go, and all you do is basically you find out where the impurities are, and just even stuff like that. They're tools. Yeah, you find out where the impurities are, and quite commonly you can nap them away, and if you can't, they just become part of the tool. So this is alternate flaking. Take a flake, turn it over, do it again. And what that does is that gives you really clear access into the rock, although I don't have access from that shop. So what we'll do is we'll come up from this direction and try and get around it. Right, so what that means right there is we used a technique called alternate flaking to go all the way around the rock, and that is by no way, shape or form completely balanced out or in a position where I'm in control of it yet. But what it does mean is I can access the rock from all the way around. So I want to get underneath this material here first, but looking at this side, I've also got this. So in that case, I'm going to deal with that second, because what I have is I have a strong leader here, and if we set a platform up at the back here, like that, we should be able to cast down through there. And this is going to be hopefully a long but a thin flake cast with a soft hammer right from the edge. That worked beautifully. And because of this shape almost being harmoniously set at the side here, I'm going to come under here as well. The thing is with flint knapping, we keep little flakes like that because they're good for making arrowheads. The thing is with flint knapping, when you first start napping, things feel everything that you're trying to do is unfamiliar, and you can make some pretty bad decisions, which mean that you struggle to get the intended outcome. But after a while the method becomes more familiar to you, and you get to understand what you can get away with and what you can't. But that's just practice. I guess you can say the same, pretty much say the same for anything. See, I'm crushing it there. So. That's a stubborn area. That texture there is different to the rest of the flint, so it does make it a bit difficult to nap through. That's good. See, you put the power in there, and commonly the flint will do what you're intending with it. So there's quite a few videos on my channel now covering lots of different aspects of survival and things that would technically keep you alive if you was in the wild. And so if you are new to watching this, taking a moment to subscribe is never a bad idea. And furthermore to that, you can even become a member of my channel if you want. With membership, there's going to be certain perks, which means that you're going to see films released before everybody else gets to them. There'll even be some videos that only members get to see. You get a little name badge, so I know you're a member. It means I can give you shout outs, that sort of stuff. And for just a couple of quid a month, you're going in, you're supporting me and making it much more possible that me and my little company can go on and survive and exist. So just look on the screen, you'll see a membership option. Right, so things are coming along on this. It's a much more stable rock than the last one. And what we're doing now is we're coming into the next phase of creating the stone tool, which is spending as little from the perimeter as possible to construct these little V-shaped platforms and using them to really push the weight off of the whole thing, and gain a bit more control over the whole rock. And this could just as easily go wrong as the last one did. Thinking back to that last one, why did that happen? It was my fault basically. I didn't hit the flint hard enough, so the flake that I tried to take off didn't come off, and one of the shock waves went rogue. Basically the law is that when you hit the piece of flint, you have to take something off. If you don't, the shock wave causes mischief. It bounces around and basically bumps into itself coming back from the ends, and it snaps. That's why we call it end shock. Always happens to flint knappers. You can't get into this subject without that happening to you, and you just take it on the chin. If you've got an amazing bit of stone and you screw it up, that is always a bit of a disappointment. But as you can see in here, there's it's not the most perfect quality piece of flint. Which makes it a little bit easier to live with if things do go wrong. So yeah, going back to a couple of things, I haven't really had an opportunity to sit down and make any YouTube film lately, just because of the style of what you do when you make a film for YouTube. You have to put a bit more thought into it generally. This is pretty much unedited, as you can see. But what I'm going on to, if you wanted to keep in touch with me more regular than just YouTubing, I do have Facebook, Instagram and TikTok even, believe it or not. So if you use any of them platforms and you want to find me, you'll just find me out there as Will Lord Prehistoric Survival, same as on here. So in terms of what I'm making, I could just turn this into a regular axe head, sort of Neolithic style. I could even go for a hand axe, Paleolithic. The difference being, a Neolithic axe was made for chopping trees down and would be put into a wooden handle, and a Paleolithic hand axe wasn't used for chopping trees down at all. It was used as a butchery tool. Or if I feel that this is going in the right direction, we could even push on and see if there's a knife in it. But I have my doubts. A little bit of crystal laying in there, look. The crystals you find in Flint are calcite crystals. They can be quite pretty sometimes. You can get blues, reds, pinks, all sorts of stuff like that. But I've just napped that one out. This is starting to come together now. The most of the lumps, major lumps, have been trimmed out. So I can just keep on pushing in with this same sort of style. And as I go, what I do is I alternate it once again. So I've just flaked out of that side. So the order would be to adjust this edge along here, where I just flaked from, to reset it as a new platform, like that. So we can turn it over and flake back that side. I've got a little bit of height laying here, which I failed to get from here and here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build up a bit of a situation from the back. Like so. stabilise that. And then see if we can shoot down through the middle there. Bit of a risky shot, but I'll take it anyway. Yeah, that was exactly what I wanted to achieve. It'll come off nice. So this is starting to thin out quite nicely. It's behaving like you want flint to behave. And so therefore what we could do is we could think about this becoming a flint knife. So one of the things that I do quite regularly is I hold little raffles with the stuff that I make, and some of you will have come across that and joined in, and some of you will have won. So keep your eye out for them. I'll do little posts about them from time to time. In fact, in the last raffle, a guy won a £60 longbow for 5 tickets. So he'll be pretty chuffed about that, I'm sure. Right, things are coming along pretty good. See, these flakes, what they're doing is they're travelling across and they're fulfilling their journey, which means that they're sharp all the way around the edge. The alternative is to that they break in halfway, and that would leave you, as we describe as a hinge on the surface of the flint, which is not the desired outcome. But we're doing okay. Right, so this is the most contaminated part of the rock now. We've just flaked successfully through this side. So once again, I'm going to reset this, and I'm going to try and pass underneath that lower grade. It's still flint, it's just a bit more, it's not as smooth. And so because it's not smooth, the shockwave struggles to get through it in the same fashion. It's a bit like dragging a flake off. And as this is getting thinner, if you're not familiar with flint knapping, what that would mean is that you would begin to worry about snapping it in half, and that might encourage you to hit it a little bit softer. That'd be the worst thing you can do. Because then what you're going to be doing is you're going to be making noises, vibration noises in the stone by hitting it soft. So these last few flakes, I am hitting it softer, but I've changed the angle, I've tilted the edge down, and I'm casting in a little bit of a shorter flake, which is good because what that does is it makes the edge pivot off a bit. When it pivots off, that means that the edge of the stone isn't so thin, and it makes it more possible to pass flakes out to the centre again. That one is what I call a jump start flake. means that I hit it here, but it jumped out and started a bit further back. The flakes still come off, so it hasn't caused me a problem. It's just one of them things that can occur. It's always best to keep the leg pad clean as well, because otherwise they're the bits that are going to cut you up. And so far so good, I'm not bleeding yet. Yeah, so this, if you cast yourself back in time, when you think about it, this is a common everyday practice for people making flint tools. They'd have been so familiar with this that they would have been very good at it. And I don't think that the people that we're talking about would have been important for their skill in flint knapping. In fact, it was modern people that named it and called it flint knapping. It was more a case of it as an everyday essential practice, making your survival efforts into a much more realistic idea. We've got a little bit of stumbling out here, so I've got to be careful just there. What I'm going to do about that is I'm going to kind of work that platform a little bit harder to make it stronger, and see if I can get through it. Yep. Everything there went really well. Look at that, 22 minutes without a cut. In some respects I should be cutting and putting the camera in different positions, perhaps to get you a little bit closer. So if that's irritating you, I apologise for that. But from the comments I've had on films in the past, it's shown me that it's much more agreeable if I don't mess about. Just get on with it. So on this occasion, that's exactly what I'm doing. And every single flake that I attempt to take off is important, because any one of them could ruin the look of what we're trying to achieve. While they keep going out there, the vision keeps growing. But if you start making problems, then what you do, it's a bit like chasing your tail. You'll just be chasing them problems all the time. It's quite interesting as well. I mean, one of the things that we're really dealing with here is we're dealing with experimental archaeology. And it wasn't so long ago that me and my dad were employed by an archaeology team to go up to Cambridge and to the hospital and have our hands scanned in an MRI scanner, because what they were really interested in was the different ways our hands have developed over the 50 years that we've been flint knapping. That'll be the way muscles are attaching, and they're looking for, you know, just interested in reading a napper's hand as opposed to a hand that does something else. I don't know if they've got any, what sort of results they got. But it was an interesting day out. But what do your hands go through? So I've got osteoarthritis in this thumb because there's a lot of gripping and a lot of stamping. Probably overdeveloped in the tips of the fingers, which when it gets cold they can get sore. So I suppose if you do something with a regularity like this, there could end up being negative things to worry about. And flint nappers are supposed to nap outside because they can get silicosis of the lung with flint dust. I've got an 84-year-old dad, nothing wrong with him, if you know what I mean. So, we're getting down into the later effects of this now, so we could call that a flint tool just as it is, and that's, you know, perfectly acceptable as it is. But now I have kind of made the decision that we're into dagger territory. What that means is we're going to carry on thinning it. We're going to be pushing my luck. That's what that means. What I do when I'm up near the tips, the tip is one place you can very easily break it off. I don't know if you noticed, but I was gripping it really tight. And I was doing that to isolate any shockwave that wants to get away. Yeah, we're pushing these flakes right out to the centre and beyond now. And this is now about 12 millimeters thick. We can actually get that down to about 6 or 7 mil thick if we want. There was a culture called the Salutrian culture about 11,000 years ago out in France, and the flint nappers were making spearheads so thin you can see the light through the middle. And you'll see stuff like that in the British Museum in London or in some of the museums in France. We're talking about a high degree of skill, really owning the craft. Good, needed that. So we're still struggling because of a couple of little flakes. They've not come to where I need them to get to just here, and that is because of this grainy material. Trouble is every time you go after it, if it fails, what that actually means is you have put something on the surface which is highly undesirable. But now we've got one out. So what we've now got is we've got a bit of section here which is quite thin at the edges and won't allow us to get to the middle. So what we've done is I've dropped down the angle, look, keeping it fairly flat, just to move us forward into the piece of flint without trying to take any material out of the middle. And that kind of makes the edges thicker, which raises our chance of getting back to the centre. I remember realising that many years ago. It was quite a handy thing to realise. So if this as it's with its current intended length, with its current length, I could narrow this out if that becomes a desirable area to look at, and lash that, make that a dagger with a full handle in it, or we could put a handle on it, but then it becomes kind of huge. And I like getting proportions right, and I think huge daggers can sometimes look good, but sometimes it's not so good. And with that being said, what I mean is that if I end up losing that, I'm not sure I'm even that bothered. Because if it doesn't look right, I'll destroy it anyway. Meaning I'll take it off. What I can do now is I can change the soft hammer. Just have a, this is my new napping bag. Keep all my punches and so forth around here. And this is a deer antler which came from America, sent over to me by another practicing primitive technologist. You might even know him, Donny Dust, good old boy. The reason you drop down is because I can move it slightly faster, and the tip is smaller, so it's helping me with the accuracy a bit. What I'm doing is I'm building up for a release here. And as I go across towards it, technically I'm climbing into it a bit, which I've got a little lump here that I need to deal with, and we'll pressure flake that. Like that. We'll go for that then. That was a good one, that went across. I'm happy with that one. got my suspicions that this one will fail, so we've only got one choice and us to go for it anyway. Yeah, that didn't work out. Which has made that look rubbish down there. I'm going to keep going for it because I can't accept that, which means that we're drawing this tip in a little bit like I was mentioning. I don't want anything off of this side is good. Right, that's okay. If you look at that, that ripped down through there, but it took off what I wanted off in some respects. Really clobbering that now. Right, let's try it from the opposite side. It can be that bad, you know. We're going to get it, guys. We're definitely going to get it or lose it. Right, we're clearing it. Good. When you hit things as hard as this, repetitively, it does make your hands shake. I assure you I don't normally shake it like this. But sheer impact of whacking things like Cayenne. That's not a good shape to hit. Let's see if I can adjust that. It's quite good for you guys to see what a problem can look like and what would be done about that. Because, you know, you can get into these situations and you think that you're no good at flint knapping. It's not that you're not any good, it's just a situation. You're either prepared to work through it or you're not. Good. What is it, Chip? It's some noisy geese. Right, we got through that issue, but now we've got some rectifying to do in the shape. And that means that this if it survives, will be going on the handle of some description, maybe an antler handle. What you say, boy? Oh, to be so young. All these little things working on these senses. It can be really easy for the little thin flakes that are coming off now to snap on their journey, and that is one of the things that for a period in your napping you'll get stuck with. Eventually you'll start ironing them out. See, they're coming off, still coming off quite nice. So that has all run well, just apart from that little flake there. So if you've watched this video from start to finish, that means that I've technically chewed through an hour of your life. You can never get that back, so sorry about that. So I'm based in Suffolk in the UK, and what I do down here is I pretty much live in the forest with my dog, and I run courses down here and a whole variety of subjects, and you can get to them by my website, which is the 3 W's followed up by will-lord.co.uk. And I've got some more dates to put up for next year yet, but could be something to ask for Christmas. And people do travel from all over the world to come and visit me. I get people coming from as far as Australia. Can't get much further than that. And don't forget, if you've got this far, that means that you're very invested and interested in this subject, and you can mean a lot to me by becoming a member of my YouTube channel. So before you go, flick on over there, get yourself subscribed, and you'll be helping to keep one essence of the primitive community alive. That's not a bad thing to know for less than the cost of a pint of beer a month. Not perfect. It really ain't perfect, but it's good enough for now. So cheers guys, thanks for tuning in. Have a great day, whatever you're doing, wherever you are in the world. All the best. You've been watching Will Lord. Make sure you subscribe and follow.